Wheelchair to bed using a Hoyer lift. Before the transfer begins, inspect the integrity of the Hoyer pad in the Hoyer lift. Before you get started with the transfer, make sure you have everything you might need. In addition, make sure the sheets are pulled down on the bed. Before we begin with the transfer, if the consumer is in an automatic wheelchair, make sure to power the wheelchair off. If the consumer is in a manual wheelchair, make sure to lock both wheels. Next, unbuckle the client and make sure the consumer is aligned in the center of the Hoyer pad properly and safely. Now, the driver of the Hoyer lift will position the overhead piece towards the middle of the consumer's torso, as pictured. At this time, make sure the Hoyer lift is locked. Secure all corner loops of the Hoyer pad to the hooks on the overhead piece, placing all loops on the same color. While one staff member stands close to the consumer, the driver of the Hoyer lift will start pumping the hydraulic lift until the consumer is raised high enough to clear the wheelchair. At this point, it is safe to unlock the Hoyer lift. Wheel the client over to the bed with one staff member preventing any unnecessary movement of the client. Position the client over the bed and then lock the Hoyer lift. Slowly lower the client onto the bed. Once the client is lowered onto the bed, unhook all of the Hoyer pad loops from the overhead piece. Finally, wheel the Hoyer lift away from the consumer and make sure the consumer is in a comfortable position. Bed to wheelchair Hoyer lift transfer. Always start a transfer with the Hoyer lift by positioning the Hoyer directly over the consumer and always locking the wheels. Next, attach all 4 loops to the overhead piece, making sure all loops are on the same color. Slowly start pumping the hydraulic lift upward until the consumer is high enough above the bed. Unlock the Hoyer lift and slowly wheel the client towards the wheelchair, having one staff member guiding the Hoyer and the other staff member preventing any unnecessary motion with the consumer in the lift. Now, lock the Hoyer lift. The staff member guiding the consumer should bring the consumer as far back against the wheelchair as possible. Slowly release the valve so that the consumer is comfortably in the seat. If the consumer is not comfortably placed in the seat, lift the Hoyer pad back up, adjust the consumer's body, and release the consumer down into the wheelchair. Always watch to make sure the hanging piece of the Hoyer does not collide with the consumer's head. Unfasten all loops from the hanging piece and make sure to place the safety belt over the client before walking away. Finally, unlock the Hoyer lift wheels and move the lift to a place where it can safely be stored out of the way. We hope you transfer this knowledge to your everyday practice.